Hello and welcome to Two-Way Talk Basketball Podcast, talking about everything basketball from both perspectives. With dual Olympian and NBL champion Mark Worthington and dual Olympian and 2 times NBL MVP Chris Anstey, hosted by sports presenters Candy Hertz and Nathan Stremple. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Two-Way Talk. We're 4 games in. We've now been able to see all 8 teams on the court. Initial thoughts, there is lots to be said. Some of the teams playing, of course, exactly as we expect. Some, a few surprises. We've already had an overtime and a team scoring over 100. I'm Candy Hertz. Nathan Stremple, what are your initial thoughts on the start of the season?
Well, it's great to have live Australian hoops back on TV. Candy, thanks for that little intro. And it's great to be just chatting again and have dual 2-time Olympians to give us their thoughts. 4 games out of the way already. Chris Anstey, Mark Worthington. Great to be chatting hoops a few days later.
Yeah, I mean, it's been good. I've sort of missed basketball. I mean, we got done with the NBA playoffs, and then there's sort of this dead period where there's nothing that we can watch. But now we've got the WNBL back on. And we've got an NBL preseason game going on right now. Hoops is back on, and as a basketball fan, I'm very excited.
Let's jump straight into it then. First game of the season, the defending champs, Canberra Capitals, they went down to the Adelaide Lightning. Chris, what were your thoughts on that one?
My thoughts were Canberra are going to have a much, much longer season with an All-Australian backcourt. They didn't look like a shadow of the team that they were the last 2 years when they were champions. Maddie Rocci was very solid, but, you're taking 27 shots from that position and a lot of them weren't fantastic. They just need to understand a little bit better decision-making as they go. And, it's an interesting one where we've all sat around and we've discussed the games over the last 2 days, and we need to give the girls a little bit of leniency coming off a long pre-season, but it's only a 6-week season. These games count. But for me, the absolute highlight of this game, the Adelaide, of course, Lightning winning, but the numbers that Steph Talbot put up, let me just read these: 31 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists, or 7 steals. Just an incredible all-round game to carry a team across the line in an opening round game.
And it's a little of what I was saying. Mark, I'll get to you in a sec, but I was saying that we might see the MVP not be a Liz Cambage because that Flyers team's so deep, and it might be. I mentioned Mariana Tola or Kelsey Griffin from the Capitals, but I think they both might be a bit hurt. But Steph Talbot and Ebster at Perth kind of fit that category of a star player on a team with a roster that isn't as stacked. Your thoughts, Mark?
Well, I thought even though Talbot's numbers were fantastic, if you watch the game, her first 5 to 6 minutes were horrific. It was really, she did her bulk of her work after she got to settle down. I think she had 4 turnovers in the first 5 minutes as well. Really working almost on a quadruple double there at one stage. But after she found a way and getting back into the game, I thought she did great. I think Ali Wilson was just that calming influence, someone that Talbot doesn't have to have the ball in her hands the entire time, that Wilson can create off the on-ball. She's a lot more aggressive looking for a shot than what she was in Sydney last year, and I really liked her game. And from a Canberra point of view, you looked at their bigs and thought, well, this could be a team that could probably go up against the Liz Cambage with who they had. They had the Griffins, they've got Tolo, they've got Froling, and then they had Ruth. Ruth going down, she was playing really well. She had changed the momentum in the 4th quarter, and all the momentum was with the Capitals. She goes down with an ankle injury, and then that sort of halted their progression. I think Adelaide were able to steady themselves, obviously go into overtime and just have a lot more run. I think when we look past this first round and we say, all right, what did we know? We knew that the Flyers and we knew that the Boomers were really, really good. But after that, the next 3, you'd have to put probably Adelaide and Canberra, if they can be healthy, into that top 4 conversation with what we saw out of the first round.
Canberra only.
Go ahead, Candy.
Well, Canberra only ended up in the end with only 7 healthy players that game. So if they're going to stick with those sorts of numbers, that is going to be tough for them. Adelaide, of course, had the full 12 the whole way through. Anstey, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering what's wrong with Tola. I mean, coming off the bench, playing 20-odd minutes. She didn't quite look right, carried it through a game. That's going to be a really interesting one. But for me, their best, probably most efficient player was still Keely Froling. Every time she touched the ball, something good happened on both ends of the floor. And that's what got me with Maddie Rocci shooting the ball so many times when you've got Keely Frawley in the right spots to receive the ball. I just think they've got to get a little bit more cohesive to really figure in that top four, especially with the way that the young Townsville team opened the season. But I think Adelaide get better as well. And you look across the team, Marina Whittle's an elite scorer at any level and just looks like she's going to get better and better. Didn't look fit, looked a little bit rusty. And, you know, she's going to start for this team. Every game she plays, I think she gets better. So, again, a win at this stage of the season is the same as it is at the end of the season. That's a big win for Adelaide because these two teams will be in the mix to finish in those third and fourth spots this season.
Well, both of you have mentioned Adelaide and Canberra for third and fourth, but I think as we move on to the next game, don't sleep on Townsville. I mentioned it last week. Shannon Seaborn.
No, not sleeping. It's going to be a race. Absolutely.
Yeah. And let's move on to that next game.
And just before you move on, Nath, last episode, I said that Paul Goris was going to be Coach of the Year. Chris Lucas totally outcoached him that game. He outcoached him, and he's a well-known coach in this league that has been a proven winner time and time again, and we've all slept on him. The change-ups that he made in that game to affect the flow of the game was a masterstroke. He went from man into zone to trapping the post to not trapping the post. There was no rhythm in what the Capitals could get into. So before we move on, give full credit to Chris Lucas and what he was able to do that game and his coaching over Goris, because I think at the end of the day, that was the biggest difference between the two clubs, was the way that the game was coached.
Yeah, well, I love it. I think there's a great battle of coaches within the league, and we saw Townsville. I'm big on Shannon Seaborn, the fact that they're up in Townsville and acclimatised, and I think this short season really suits players like Lauren Nicholson and Shyla Hill, and we saw it in that opening game compared to Perth. New coach, Whitcomb out late, and they got pumped by the fire.
And Townsville were really good. And you talk about Lauren Nicholson and Shyla Hill. They played an attacking style of basketball. And one thing that we didn't speak about last episode is Shannon Seaborn's reputation with the young Australian girls that he coached as juniors. Shyla was, if he was in the league earlier, Shyla would have been with him earlier. I know that. And now she gets to the coach that she wants to play for, and he knows exactly the right positions to put his players in to be successful. We saw Shyla using mid-pick and roll, getting on her right hand. That mid-range pull-up already looks as good as anyone in the league in that position. So, on the flip side of that, you'd imagine if Katie Ebzery, to your point, Nate, is going to be an MVP, she has to be a lot better than what she was in round one, because they absolutely needed her and she didn't step up and play as well as we know that she can.
When you see there in the highlights where Shyla Hill's great, she's just got an elite change of pace. And so Shyla, we talked last episode about that Opals point guard spot being open, and Nicholson's another one that's come into that Opals group and really wants to try and get her spot for Tokyo.
Yeah, I thought Shyla Hill played a really under-controlled match, didn't seem to force anything, just took the shot when it was available, still was able to run the team. I thought she had a very, very good first game under the new helm of Shannon Seaborn. Lauren Nicholson might be the best two-way player in the league. She's known as a great defender as well. She's able to score, but then also able to lock up the people as well. And for me, I really enjoyed watching her play. From the Perth side, it made me think maybe Katie Ray and Darcy Garvin are just better as complementary players and not so much being the player. And there's a big difference when that happens. I know it's early days and it's the first game, but Perth probably looked the worst out of anyone in that first round, the way that they don't have enough scoring. And yes, I'm going against WA, Nath. I can see you smiling and chuckling and all that already. It didn't take long. Give me 4 days and I'll get back to my old self.
Jumping straight off.
You've built them up and you've knocked them down.
But But after watching them, I'm going to struggle to see where they are going to get their scoring from this year. We saw other teams score in Perth. I'm not sure. Their shots looked off balance. Their offense didn't look as good and clean as what other teams did. And I just struggle to see where their scoring is going to come from.
And also, Shyla mentioned, of course, she spent the whole of ISO with her dad being trained like crazy every day. I wouldn't have minded seeing a bit of that action too.
You know what? It's the exact point that I was going to make. You can tell that players like Shyla have been working. She looked in great touch, and you could tell the players who hadn't been working. We mentioned last week, every game is on television and the girls need to be ready. Some weren't. It was interesting, just a random thought I had during the game. You know, Sammy Whitcomb, we all know the role she would have played at Perth. Little bit of a conspiracy theory we spoke about while we were watching the game. Did she read the writing on the wall and think, we're not going to be very good? My family is way more important than going through a team that plays like that, because she'd seen them train and she'd been a part of it in Queensland to the best of my knowledge. And she chose to leave on the eve of the season. Maybe she knew, and I'm not sure, but she would have helped that team, but I'm not sure the quality of shots she would have got from that backcourt.
Moving on to game 3, of course. This was a game I think we were all pretty excited to get into. We had the Boomers versus Sydney. Now, I think we already know what we all feel about the Melbourne teams, but do you guys reckon we actually saw what we were expecting to see with the Boomers? They had most of the same team together. They've at least been able to keep that synergy. Wertho, what do you think? Did we see the same sort of team we expected to see?
I think we saw a very deep Melbourne Boomers team, full of talent, a lot of people. They rotated bodies off the bench very early, and they just kept on coming in waves. Ezzy McBeggar got into the game slowly but built away. I liked the way that she built into the game. But Tess Madgen was the star of this game by a country mile, and her ability to, fill the box scores up with everything from rebounding to assists and then being able to score at will like she was. She was definitely the most exciting part of that game. From a Sydney point of view, they've got some stability there with Swagmeyer and Mansfield coming over from Perth. I really like Mansfield's game. I thought those two competed hard all game, but the thing that I came back to is probably a lack of overall talent for Sydney. When you look at the rest of their starting lineup, Maley was just a bit player last year for the Flyers and didn't get too many minutes. Scherf really hasn't lived up to her potential and what a lot of people were hoping from her. I think she had a solid game, but I think everyone keeps waiting for her to go to the next level. And then Burton, she's an opal and made the team, and probably the most controversial pick in Opal's history by leaving out Susie Bakovic from that team. I know she brings a lot of athleticism to her, but what's she great at? I'm still yet to know what she's great at. I think she's good at a lot of things, but she's not great at anything in particular from what I see. And I think Sydney will just suffer from a lack of overall talent.
And incredible summary where they couldn't have said any better. But Tess Madgen, to me, was the player she was 2 years ago before she got injured. And we always talk about the type of impact the entire season has coming back from a long-term injury. And I don't think we saw the best version of Tess Madgen in Townsville last year. And I wasn't sure what we were going to get or what the Boomers were going to get. But as you say, she was an absolute standout in that game. Just could score at will, knock down the three, got on the rim. She looks a step quicker than what she did last year. She's strong, and she's going to be a handful, and they're going to need her to be. Again, just to double up on Ezzy McBeggar, she started the game slowly, but when she got going and caught it on the elbow and just ripped and got on the rim, she's rebounding over girls. I stand by what I said last week. She's the best young player in this thing, and we will put Shyla Hill right there with her. But she will absolutely change games. Now, Lauren Scherf, I've loved watching her as a junior. She's been an incredible talent. She's wanted more opportunity, but she came in unfit. She's one of the players that wasn't ready to start the season. Whatever she did in the off season wasn't what a professional basketball player needs to do to prepare themselves to be at their best when the season starts. And she needs to be a step quicker to guard Ezzy, and then she needs to be a little bit stronger to guard Liz Cambridge when they get there. She's one of the biggest bodies in the league. She needs a little bit more explosiveness around the rim on her finishes. Some of those ones she just threw up through defense and didn't even get the rim when she got tired. So, I'm I love seeing these bigs play, and she is very talented, but this season's going to slip away, and I'd hate to see her miss an entire season or not perform as we hoped that she would because she came in unfit, but it looks like she might, unfortunately.
Guys, I'm so happy.
Sorry, Candy. Kristen Worth, I love the strength of your opinions, and you give it the praise when they deserve it, and you're strong in your correction when they deserve it too. I love that insight. One final game for the round, but as we jump off that, I love seeing Lauren Mansfield fit as well. She carried a foot injury most of last season, and we talk about that battle for the next Australian Opals. Point guard Mansfield was very good in one of the rare shining lights for the Flyers. One of the rare shining lights for Sydney. But as we move on to the Flyers, and we were all bullish on how talented they were, and we just saw in that game 4 just how ominous they potentially will be all season.
Well, I think we saw straight from the get-go, like they've got the most firepower out of anyone else, and the way they were able to put over 100 points on the board and make it look easy. Things that I really liked from the game. I liked Cambridge's game. I know everyone knew that she can play, but the fact that she was running rim to rim hard to get layups early in the game, getting post feeds, getting to the foul line. I think Chris called for it last week, knowing how to officiate her as well. I think a lot of the time they made the right calls. It's not always going to go away. A shout out to Mon Conti as well for coming on and just changing. Tess Levy was having her way early in that game and seemed to be in cruise control, and they put her on the court. Not only did she stop her, Mon Conti was able to get her own shot off as well. And the Flyers as a team, their confidence was up. They were shooting at an unbelievable clip from the floor. I think their 3-point percentage was well over 60% at the end of the game, and everyone got a piece of the pie. And this is what happens with a team that gets really comfortable in what they were doing. Now, if I'm going to flip it over to the other side, I don't think there was a plan B in place for anything that the Flyers were doing. Bendigo just looked defeated most of the game. They need to know their identity and who they are and what they can do. They've got 2 players that the ball needs to be through. That's Tess Levy and Carly Ernst. That's it. They should be doing middle pick and rolls or some sort of action to get those 2 into a pick and roll, especially with Carly's ability to stretch the floor and shoot. We saw her knock down multiple threes. But when it went through different sets of hands and other people were trying to make plays, I just don't think it was working for them. So for them and Tracy York, back to the drawing board. That's a tough way to open up your season, giving up 102 points, but they need to get back on the right track quickly. Otherwise, this season will go by very, very quickly, and it's not going to be pretty for them.
And Carly Ernst, I will start with a little bit of positive with Bendigo, because there wasn't a whole bunch, but she actually showed a willingness to go inside, which she hasn't shown over the last couple of years, and a nice couple of little right-hand hooks in the middle against Liz. So if she can consistently provide that inside and outside presence, we know how well she shoots the ball. And I agree. I mean, Tess Levy's not going to go 3 of 17 again. She'll become a lot more efficient as it goes on. But I thought Alicia Froling was solid, double-figure rebounds, defended Cambridge pretty well. Outside of that, though, outside of their full court pressure and a couple of little runs, it was a different league. And for the Flyers, interesting. It's always interesting in a star-studded team to see where the minutes go. And the high minute play, the only player that played over 30 minutes for the Flyers was Sarah Blitzarves, and double-figure scoring, double-figure rebounding. And for me, the really pleasing one, I think, was actually Steph Blitzarves. She's had the year off. She's got a young child and she hasn't played for a long time. So she's been getting into motherhood, hasn't played a lot of basketball, and she's just fit into that role absolutely seamlessly coming off the bench for the Flyers. So great to see Coach Cheryl Chambers get really deep into the bench in their first game. We even saw Sherade Taylor get minutes, who I don't think has played any WNBL minutes before, but what a wonderful sort of environment for her to walk onto the court with so much talent around her, have all the space in the world to knock down a corner three and just have some fun out there. But hey, they shot the ball great, and we know how talented the Flyers are. They're going to out-athlete teams. They're going to outsize teams, and if they're going to shoot the ball that well from the perimeter, it's hard to see anybody getting near them.
They were a good game to watch as the wrap-up of being able to see every team on court. It was exciting to see them. I'm surprised they didn't open the season. I think that would have been, just lifted it another level. But good to see them on court and great to have coverage of every game. I'm very
glad they did not open the season because one thing I need to have a little bit of a go at. Why would you open the season when you fight against State of Origin? Why? They've had enough time. Got the popcorn, got the pizza, good. Okay, let me roll through these things because we want to get this right. I'll tell you my biggest concern for over the course of the 2 weeks, and when we're going to take the players out of it, they're going to get better. We're going to take the coverage out of it. I think they're going to get better. How does a professional scoring bench not be able to allocate 14 rebounds per game and just put them as team rebounds? They land in someone's hands. Give somebody a rebound. Whoever's hands it ends up in, give them a rebound. The WNBL needs higher statistical games. We need to promote double-doubles, triple-doubles. And I look down at the box score and I'm thinking, geez, these players had a great rebounding game and they've got 3. And then I look at the box score and there are 12 team rebounds. What's that? I've never had a team of basketball players grab a rebound. They need to get that better. I know it's a little thing and I wanted to have a rant because it really upset me watching the first 4 games.
It's not little though, Chris, when you actually start talking about the league needs it, but this is contracts and careers are made on this. So there's players that want to break through and play WNBA or they might want to play overseas and people are looking at the numbers they get.
Imagine that. You want a WNBA contract as a young player and you have 14 points and 4 rebounds when you had 14 and 9. They've got to tidy that up. There shouldn't be any team rebounds. Allocate every single missed shot to somebody.
Why do you think that's happened?
Oh, I don't want to speculate. Hey, look, the score bench needs to be better. The directive needs to be better. Yeah. At the end of the day, it all starts from the top. If the CEO or the game management committee tells their staff to do their job, they'll do it. Give them the right direction.
Do you think it's just that they tried everything in their power to get this season up as quickly as possible and it just didn't?
No, because it's been happening for years and it's just an easy cop-out. I've spoken about it too long. I mean, we're talking about team rebounds for 3 minutes, but they need to fix it.
On that note, any early surprises as before we move on to the next round's games or the weekend's games, anything for you that stands out overall looking at the 4 games so far?
I don't think there was anything that's really stood out to me. I really liked that someone that we didn't talk about in the little coverage was Nadine Payne and her ability to stretch the floor for Townsville. Nadine's probably been in that same kettle of talented but probably hasn't taken a game to the next level, and maybe she's one of those players that actually get to do that this year. And besides that, I thought overall we knew that the 2 Melbourne teams were going to be there. We knew that the Boomers would be the team to compete with the Flyers, but I was really surprised by Adelaide and their performance and how good they actually looked and how well they ran their offense throughout the 40 minutes.
You're being really, really nice, Wertho, and I love you for it. But the thing that stood out to me, again, it's one round of basketball. Take the Flyers out. Across the entire WNBL, again, every game's on television now. You cannot shoot the three-point shot at 22% as a league. It's unacceptable. We spoke about Shyla Hill. We can tell that she's been working. She's getting to her spot. She's knocking down her shots. There were maybe a handful of players in the league that looked like they'd been shooting the ball at the volume required to be a professional athlete. The three-point shooting was horrendous. And again, it's round one, but we're only talking a 6-week season and there are basketball rings everywhere. So that needs to get better. And I really, really hope that it does. And I really, really hope that I look silly talking about it now, but we're watching on ABC tomorrow night. We're watching the Melbourne Derby. We've got big games coming up this early in the season. If people want to keep watching, we don't want to be watching missed shots and air balls. We need to be watching higher scoring games when they get uncontested shots.
But I'll say, Chris, and you remember as a player that people come into the season at different levels. We both agree on that.
Sure.
And the professionals do get the work done. But round one, some of these teams have only had 2 weeks to prepare on court as a team. And you know as much as anyone, there's a difference between shooting the ball and getting this ball in the right spots to make those shots. And what I saw on the weekend from a lot of teams was a lot of unpredictability with their shooting, as if they were surprised that they were getting that shot. To me.
But you also know, Wertho, that really good shooters, if you've been getting the number of shots up, there's a good miss and there's a bad miss. A good miss will hit the back of the rim and bobble out or go up. We're not shooting 2-foot short air balls. There's a big difference. So I agree with you 100%, and I'm sure it will get better. But the Flyers have only had a few weeks together as well, and they shot the ball at 52%. And I know that's talent. That's all those kinds of things we're talking about. But, you know, to compete at this level, that's the measuring stick. Other teams have to be at that level. They can't just roll over and say, well, that's the Flyers. They're too good. You've got to go and find a way to match them. It takes work.
I'll just say, sorry, and I know we've got to move on. But one thing that just popped into my mind from watching the 4 games is that majority of the teams talked about playing fast-paced basketball. How many actual teams are capable of playing fast-break basketball with the talent that they have? And the answer is 2, maybe 3 teams are capable of it. If I'm playing outside Flyers, I am just wasting time and moving the ball and letting them have as little time with the basketball as possible, instead of taking quick shots and allowing my firepower to try and be better than their firepower, when quite clearly they've got the most firepower in the league. And I hate saying firepower because they're dodgy bastards that ripped me off when I was at the Sydney Kings. But overall, if I'm playing one of these top 2 teams, I am grinding it into the ground. And this is an old Aaron Fern tactic. And they couldn't always get the type of talent that they needed up in Cairns versus some of the other clubs that spend a lot more money. But what Cairns did was just were methodical in their offense and just wore you down over 4 quarters by getting the ball through sets of hands and then getting to an end of clock situation. Now, if I'm one of the 6 clubs that aren't from Melbourne, that's what I'd be doing against, because that's what you have to try and beat. And if you're trying to run an up and down game, you're going to struggle big time.
I think Adelaide could run as well, but that's all we've got time for this week, guys. So we're going to have to wrap it up there. No, we're going to move on. Let's keep moving. I'll go on that rant. Big games coming up the weekend. 5 more games. What stands out for you guys? Let's pick something that you're looking forward to over the 2 games Saturday and 3 games Sunday.
Oh, the Melbourne Derby. It has to be. You know, we get a good look at what we all believe to be the best 2 teams in the league. We'll see how, you know, as Guy Malloy said, he wants the Flyers to have to worry about the Boomers and not vice versa. So I think we're really going to get a close look at where the rest of the league needs to be. I tend to think the Flyers are a little bit ahead in their preparation and might get over the line in this one, but it's going to be, I think, the most enjoyable game and the most exciting game of basketball we've seen in the very short time it's this season's been going for.
I'm just looking forward to everyone shooting the absolute piss out of it this week just to
I
prove
hope
this
you're
Anstey
right,
wrong. But outside of that, it has to be the Derby. And there's a lot of big names there. It's going to be interesting to see the scoreline in that game, whether it's going to be more the team that plays the better defense or is it going to be the team that puts up the more points. Both capable of doing both ends of the floor. But early days, I'm going to say the Flyers will get this one, just going off the first 4 games. But I really do like this Boomers team.
For the record as well, guys, some of the teams haven't even been together for 2 weeks because they were in quarantine and only got to do these really tiny snippets on the court. So they've actually had less than that. Now that we've got at least every team that's had a good run, it is going to be good to continue. This is still round 1, by the way. Like for the rest of this week, we've got another 5 games of round 1 and lots more opportunities to chuck some bets on. Chris, I know you've got something you want to talk about.
Yes, our multis did okay. Well, we missed by a mile on the first one, but if you're going to miss out on a bet, you might as well missed by a mile, but we got the second one up, and we do like a couple of bets over the weekend. And we obviously want to promote gambling responsibly, but as we have a look at them on the screen right now, on Saturday, I really like this $3.47, and I can't quite see it on the screen. My eyes aren't that good, but we've got the Flyers covering the line at -3.5. I think they'll win by 4 or more, and it's the Sydney. It's the Flames. I think -6.5. They'll get that one done. $3.47. Then of course, as we move across to Sunday, the over/unders in the first game under 150 points. I think in a game like that is a lock. I don't see both of those two teams scoring 75, 80 points, and I think the Townsville Fire will upset the Canberra Capitals a little bit better, in my opinion, in round 1. They go in as a very long shot to win that one. That's a $5 multi. So if you've got $1 or $2 floating around, have a look at that. That's what I'll be on the weekend.
Yeah, I feel you on the Fire odds there. Just as we look at the championship odds, the Fire sitting in that 4th spot, and like I said, I think their handy Capitals still sitting in 2nd position there for the championship. But that's a lot of what they did last year, and with Tolo and definitely Griffin missed that first game with injury there. They're in some struggles there, but the Flyers shortening from that already short odds they opened the season on, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, out of everyone in that first round 1, halfway through round 1, they definitely look like the team to beat. And if you can put on 102 points in the game, they were amazing. So I think it's around about fair. Capitals are still up there. I think the Melbourne Boomers are still the second favourite at the moment. And everyone else, I think, save your cash for right now. It's a 2-horse race.
Guys, we love our WNBL and we're so stoked to have it back on our screens, but there is a bigger basketball world and quite a bit going on as well. We're going to move straight on to our last segment that we'll end on every week, the final play. Lots going on this week. First up, some news today about Will Weaver. Weather?
Yeah, he's taken up a role with the Houston Rockets. So Will Weaver has left our shores and we wish him all the best. And I think it's just showing the strength of the NBL is not only a pathway to the NBA for players, but also for coaches as well now. And he's very well respected over there, Will, and his time in the G League with the Nets affiliate. He did a great job there and a very well liked man overall. And I know the Sydney Kings players, they all raved about how much they loved him as a coach, and it's going to be sad not seeing him on our sidelines. And I guess now the hunt continues for Sydney on who their next coach will be, as well as what the long-term view of Andrew Bogut is.
Well, in terms of their next coach, Chris, I was going to say, where do you see that? Matt Flynn come out of Illawarra, he's working with them. Rob Beveridge is out there. You just mentioned Andrew Bogut.
Yeah, look, I want to see what happens and let the dust settle for a couple of days. I don't know enough about their current assistant coaching staff. You would imagine that any time a job comes up in the NBL, Joey Wright and Rob Beveridge have to come into consideration. There are plenty of good coaches out there. But speaking of great coaches, the former Sydney Kings coach, of course, was announced as the Australian Boomers head coach today also for the upcoming Olympic Games. So Brian Goorjian, to nobody's surprise, BA went through the process they said they needed to and landed on the man that they wanted all along. So Brian Goorjian takes over the reins of the Australian Boomers again for this campaign. Wertho, I think it's the right choice. We've both played for him. He's got the immediate respect of that playing group. I think it was a good choice.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Trevor Gleeson came out in the West Australian today and saying he was pretty disappointed about not given the opportunity to coach the Boomers, and he doesn't know what else he can do to prove that he's ready to coach the team. To BA's response, Brian Goorjian was clearly the best man for the job, which was a bit of a whack, I thought, for Trevor Gleeson. But Gorge is a fantastic coach. He's got the instant respect of the players. I think he's the right choice moving forward. And it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, with the NBA being brought to December 22nd start, that we should have all our NBA guys there and hopefully get that elusive medal that we've been robbed of one too many times.
And Will Magnay, last season, what a standout for him. He was an absolute gun. And there were loads of rumours flying around about him going to the NBA. And then obviously COVID came about. Rumours are back again because he didn't travel with the team to Adelaide, which is playing right now, actually. What do you guys reckon?
Will Magnay was meant to be in a Dallas Mavericks uniform until they didn't allow international players into the bubble in Orlando. The Dallas Mavericks want to sign Will Magnay, and I think he will get there. The fact I didn't know he wasn't going to play tonight until 24 hours ago, but if we get another big Aussie in a Mavericks uniform, then I'll be the happiest guy in the world. But he did have an incredible year last year. He's highly coveted among at least 5 NBA teams. We're a little bit off with the timing before COVID, where we knew or we assumed we wouldn't see him in the NBL this year, and the Bullets have gone and put in an insurance policy. They've brought in Harry Froling, they've got Matty Hodgson, but unfortunately, I do not think we'll see Will Magnay in an NBL game this year. I think we're much more likely to see him in a Dallas Mavericks uniform.
Yeah, I hear you.
Did you play for the Mavericks, Chris?
No, I was about to say, Wertho, I hear you. Shout out to Ryan Brockhoff. It's great about big Aussies in Mavericks uniforms.
No, Andrew Bogut was a shout out there.
No, I just like that Chris has to bring up that he played for the Mavericks. Did you ever play against Michael Jordan by any chance, or do we not have enough time on this podcast?
We don't have enough time.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, while we're talking about NBA players, hey, Westbrook wants out of the Rockets. Will Weaver in, Russell Westbrook out. What do you guys make of it, Chris?
Oh, Russell Westbrook. He could go anywhere, and it's not going to matter. I don't.
It fit well in.
I've given up trying to understand Russell Westbrook. He's overpaid. He's due to make $40 million a season, and he's not going to take a team to a championship. So I think whoever takes him is just going to need to burn salary cap space. It'll be a very short-term fix. But look, as for the Houston Rockets, they've brought in Paul Silas as their head coach, Stephen Silas as their head coach. Not sure what they'll do, but look, they've changed. They've gone through Chris Paul. They've gone through Russell Westbrook. They've turned that roster upside down for the last 2 years. They need a little bit of stability. So not sure where he'll end up. Charlotte came out of the blue today. There's talk of the Knicks, but I don't think he'll end up on a good team that has aspirations of winning an NBA championship.
He will be a New York Knick next year. You talk about who would spend the money for him. New York love wasting money. At least get a half decent player to spend a lot of money on.
They have a very good new president now, of course, Wertho.
Yes. The other thing is, not only do they have a very good president, they also have a very good assistant coach in Kenny Payne, who came over from Kentucky, one of the most liked coaches in all of college. And you guys, we haven't spoken about this. We were talking about Westbrook. Don't be surprised if Devin Booker tries to get a trade to the Knicks as well, because Devin Booker wants to play for Kenny Payne as well. They had such a great relationship in college. And we might just see that the Knicks turn into a bit of a Kentucky program with the players wanting to move there.
Anything else for the final play, guys?
Looking forward to the Melbourne Derby tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing the dust settle on the Sydney Kings head coaching job. looking forward to seeing some movement in the NBA trade period. But as much as anything, when we're off air now, I'm looking forward to seeing Josh Giddey in an Adelaide 36ers uniform and seeing him try to do what LaMelo Ball did in the NBL last year.
He got first bucket of the game. I saw it just before we started recording.
There you go.
Just knocking it down from the mid-range. Wertho, you had a quick word on the, you're on the phone just before we went to air in Southeast Melbourne Phoenix with a new recruit.
Yeah, Ben Moore. Been told he's very much like a Nick Kay sort of player. He's not going to be a guy that needs the ball in his hands a lot, but will do all the intangible things to win. And so it'd be interesting to see what that team looks like this year. And I think if you get someone that fits that sort of mold with a Mitch Creek as well, there's two guys doing winning plays over and over again. I think that leads to good things. But overall, Chris is going to enjoy the game. I'm going to enjoy the bag of popcorn. Thanks for the rant, Chris. And I can't wait to do this again next week.
Well, guys, that is it for our second episode. And, of course, follow Wertho's lead, get some popcorn. Follow Nathan's lead, get some pizza. Follow Chris's lead, go on a rant, whatever you want to do. But make sure that you do catch. There are 5 more games for this weekend still. A big one, of course, the derby tomorrow, 5 o'clock. It's going to be on Foxtel as well as KO. I've got myself my KO membership. I hope everyone else has got their subscription too. And make sure you just get around all those games. We'll be back on Monday night. We'll be here every Monday night. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever your poison is. And we're actually now on Apple podcasts and on Spotify as well. So you can just listen to us too if you prefer not to see our faces, which is totally reasonable. Guys, thank you so much for tonight. We have loved the show. Nathan.
Well, just shout out to Clutch Radio as well. If you're in a position where you can't watch games, you can listen live on Clutch Radio for most of the WNBL games as well.
Absolutely.
And shout out to Luke Kendall, who just had his second child today. So well done, Luke, and partner Alex.
And I know we're supposed to wrap up, but Wertho, something about your T-shirt?
Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it?
You want to say anything about it?
Just a T-shirt from the grocery store in Melbourne. So shout out to the grocery store and all its members. I appreciate the T-shirt.
I'm so glad you couldn't wait another minute to eat your popcorn while you're here with us. Thank you for the rustle and for listening to you eat. That was a divine way to end tonight. Thank you. But thank you so much for joining us. We are Two Way Talk Podcast. So much fun. We'll catch you on Monday, hopefully. Ciao.